To make half square triangles, we're going to take 2 squares for our friendship star block. These need to be 4 inches square. On the reverse of the lighter square, we're going to draw in the diagonal. I'm using a Sharpie here, which obviously you wouldn't do, but I just want to make sure that you can see the line there. We're then going to pop them together, right sides together, and machine a 1/4 inch on both sides of that line. I've taken that to the sewing machine and stitched both sides of the line. If I turn it over, you can see the stitching better on the other side. And what I'm going to do now is take it to my cutting board and trim on that line. So I'm just going to cut it straight the way through, and then you'll see that we have 2 half square triangles. I'm going to press them, and I always press them to the dark side. You can press the seams open if you prefer, but I tend to stick to pressing mine to the dark. I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you how to square them up, how to trim them to make sure that they're exactly the right size. So just to show you my pressing method, not too hot, but quite hot with the iron, and then I nudge across the fold and hold and press. So nudge, hold and press. And when you look at it on the back side, that seam should be nice and flat against the other fabric. I don't use steam because that can distort the fabrics. So now we want to square these up. And in this instance, we're going to make sure that they are 3.5 inches square. The type of ruler that I've got here is a square ruler, and it has its diagonal running from 0 straight the way across, and its numbers go 0, 1, 2 across the top and 0, 1, 2 down towards the bottom. I position it so that my diagonal line is along the diagonal seam line. I want to be able to see just a fraction of fabric on the top and the right, and make sure I can see the 3.5 on the left. If you're finding that these are coming up a little bit small, then just take a little less than 1/4 inch seam when you're sewing. So we cut up and across, and you can see there's not a lot of fabric to take out, but it makes a difference. And then we are going to line up the diagonal again, and this time the cut edges are going to be lined up with the 3.5 inch line. And there we have a beautiful 3.5 inch square. That technique is exactly the same when making all half square triangles. The thing to remember is that you go up a 1/2 inch from what you think you need. So in this design, if we were to draw things out without any seam allowances, the squares would be 3 inches. We're going to add a 1/2 inch to take it up to 3.5 inches for our normal seam allowances. But because this is a half square triangle and we have an extra seam in there, we're going to add another 1/2 inch. So that's going to take it up to 4 inches. 3 inch finished. 1/2 inch for our normal seam allowances takes it to 3.5. An extra 1/2 inch for the diagonal takes it to 4. If you wanted to finish at 5 inch squares, you'd cut at 5.5 for normal and 6 inch if you're making half square triangles. I hope that's helpful.